Hi everybody. It's a beautiful day here in Monroe, Pennsylvania. Before I do any more firewood processing, it's time to sharpen the saw blade. Oh, gee, I'm sorry. It's time to sharpen the chainsaw chain. For those people who want to nitpick, that is a harvester saw. Therefore, I call it a saw blade. It's a saw chain. It's a saw blade. It's a chainsaw. It's all the same thing. If you want to nitpick, go somewhere else. Before I pull the chain off, what I like to do is pull the saw down just a little bit. So I reach in here with the Hookaroon and then bash my knee against the steel fender. And then I push the saw control down. And then I just pull this down a little bit. And that's good enough right there. That just gives me a little bit better access to the saw. So now I'm just going to loosen the clamp. Now I've cut a bunch of wood with this. It could probably keep going, honestly. It was still working pretty well, but I want to keep it tuned up, and I'm probably going to do a cord or two of wood. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know yet. It's awful hot out here, and I just don't do well in the heat. And Saturday, I have a firewood processing job. So I want to get this tuned up and ready to go, and that way the saw is nice and sharp. I'll back that out pretty far, and then I keep backing this out until it won't push down anymore. And that's about it right there. When I go to put this back on, the bar is lined up with the adjusting stud. It is dirty, very dirty. I need a brush. So I could sharpen this in place, but I want to do a really good job, and that way when I go to do my on-site processing that I have to do, then it's ready to go, and it's as sharp as can be. You have to get the chain off the sprocket, and then we just drop this over here like that. This is very well designed. The way this is laid out, it's real easy. I should never say that. It's real easy to work on. Just the overall method that they use to attach this, attach the bar and make the adjustments. It's just so easy. There's no fiddly parts to mess with or anything. It just goes on and off, just like almost like you would do with a regular chainsaw. All right, so there's the bar and chain, and I'm going to take this down and then do a good inspection, and then probably tune up the bar a little bit. Doesn't feel bad or look bad. And it's got some grooves in it. We'll have to clean that up a bit, and then sharpen the teeth, and then we'll be ready to get going again. Step one in the sharpening process is to clean the chain. You need to get all the sawdust and oil and whatever other crud is on the chain. We're going to get all that cleaned off of there. So we're going to put that in the parts washer. And what I do here is I kind of fold this in half so that I can lay it flat in here. And then I take a soft bristle brush, and then we just go down one side and down the other. And then I pick it up and flip it over, do the other side. Rinse it a little. Just dip it in. Dip it in again. Okay. And then up above here, I have a nail hanging. So I just kind of hook that on the nail, and then that lets the solvent drain off for a minute. Now that the chain has hung out to dry for a little while, I'm going to use some air to blow off the rest of the solvent. Next thing I'm going to do is look at each tooth and the depth gauges. All right, so we've got tooth, depth gauge. Hopefully you can see that. So first I want to find the two teeth that are both facing the same direction. These two teeth face the same way. They're both left-hand teeth. I'm just going to look real quick for any damage. There shouldn't be. This chain was running just fine, but we still need to check. If you lose a tooth or something, you may not even notice it. Not with that saw anyway. Yeah, this one looks a little weird. Looks like it's got a bit of a chunk out of it. Some sharpening will take care of that. I recently purchased a CBN wheel, which is basically a diamond sharpening wheel for my Oregon 620 chainsaw chain grinder. The diamond coating just on the very edge. So the whole wheel is steel, and then you've got these diamond bits for the cutting edge. These will produce a more a rough finish. So when you grind your tooth, the grind itself isn't really smooth. And there's different wheels you can get. Like the pink wheels are kind of like, I think they're in the middle. I have a chart someplace that shows what they do, but there's different colors of wheels. I only have the pink ones and then this CBN wheel. Anyway, what I want to show you is the grind of this is a lot more rough. So it's good for if you had to take off a lot of material, it would be good for that. It doesn't produce a great finish, but I don't know of anybody who has tested to see what difference it would make if you had a nice clean finish versus a rough finish on your chainsaw teeth. I don't know. It may not make any difference at all. So let's get the grinder set up. And as I said, this is the Oregon 620, and it is a hydraulic assist grinder. So what that means is, it sounds fancier than it is. It has a little hydraulic cylinder here, and that is your clamp. When you pull down on the head, closes this clamp automatically, so you're not clamping each one individually. I think it's pretty good. There are some disadvantages to it. Overall, it's a pretty decent setup. In any case, what I need is the side cutting angle to be 60 degrees. It's not too far off, but we'll get it. And this is not, this is anything but precision here. So that is more or less 60 degrees. This measurement is known as the top plate cutting angle. So if you look at a tooth, in here, there is an angle in here. So this angle right here is 60 degrees. The next thing it calls for is a 35 degree top plate angle. Now if you're looking straight down at the tooth, that is this angle here. That is the angle that you see on the cutting edge. So we're going to turn this, and we're going to do the left-hand teeth first. So we're going to the 35 degree mark right there. Now, it also calls for a 10 degree down angle. Apparently there's been a lot of controversy since Stihl stopped recommending the 10 degree down angle. I don't know how much difference it makes, but this is an Oregon chain, it's an Oregon bar, and these are Oregon specs. So I'm just kind of going with what they said. So a 10 degree down angle on the side of the grinder, there's a mark here, and then we have degrees. So for the left-hand teeth, we're going to slide this over to 10. Okay, so there's 10. Let's make sure we're still on 35. The one adjustment nut under here does both the down angle and the top plate angle. So we'll tighten that up. So all that does is it moves the chain off the center of the wheel. That's the only thing that does. Some grinders actually have a tilt vise where you tilt this way and you can adjust it like that. This one is different. It just moves off the center. Next is getting the stop adjusted. And we're going to cover some annoyances with this grinder. One of the things that annoys me, here's the cutting head. We bring this down and we let go. Well, guess what? It doesn't retract all the way up. Doesn't seem like a big deal, except for one thing. It's got a hydraulic clamp. So when this comes down, that clamp is starting to close. And right there, I can see it starting to close. So what's happening then is when I go to advance the chain or move the chain around at all, it gets hung up. So every time I let go of the handle, I got to make sure I lift that up a little bit so that it's not trying to clamp the next tooth. Okay, not a huge deal. It just, like I said, it's a minor annoyance. Okay, now to get the stop set correctly, that's this over here. So this is our stop. And what this does, it's just a little bar and it pushes up against the back of the tooth. Right there, we know the tooth can't go any farther back. So now we bring down, oh, and here's another thing. You want to make sure that the chain is seated all the way into the vise. All right, so now we're going to bring this down. I'm going to have to take the camera off the tripod here so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. So I'm going to bring the grinding wheel down. And it's going to land somewhere around the tooth. So I don't know. Can you see that? All right, so right now it is missing the cutting edge of the tooth. What I need to do then is I need to advance my stop, but first I have to push this all the way up. Okay, now I want to advance my stop a little bit, and this is one of the disadvantages of the hydraulic clamp. So I'm just going to push that forward just a little bit. Maybe that's half a turn, and then I'm going to bring it down again. Make sure that's seated. Come down, and it's just on the tooth. So maybe I even went a little too far. I don't want to go too far. So now I have to back it up again. So I'm going to go a quarter turn back, and then I'm going to lock this down. So you have the adjuster, and then you have a locking knob. Make sure this is completely, the clamp is completely disengaged, and I'm going to pull back. Okay. So I only did a half a turn. So now let's see where this lands. All right, it's just barely skimming it. I need it to do a little more than skim it, so I'm going to go 1/8 of a turn. Doesn't amount to much. Now we'll let the chain, reseat the chain, and come down, and we should be right on it. Okay, so we're right there. That should be good. That should take care of most of the dullness on any of these teeth. The guides that sit in the groove of the bar. These are called gauge on the chart. So the gauge is 80 thousandths. So right here on this knob, we set it to 0.08. I don't know if you can see that. 0.08. And that just means that's how much the chain is being clamped. If we went smaller, would it clamp it harder? I'm not really sure. I've tried it. It doesn't seem to make a whole heck of a lot of difference. Okay, I'm going to take a little grind on the first tooth here. One other nice thing about the CBN wheel, they don't generate as much heat. Oh, there's one more adjustment I forgot. Gosh. Yeah, this is important. My apologies. Let's back up a second. All right. How far down does the grinding wheel come? Right here, we have a stop. So this controls the depth of the cut. Can't believe I forgot that. All right. So I'm gonna bring this down until it's just barely gonna nip the chain. And that is possibly why Stihl decided they're not doing the 10-degree down angle anymore. Because as you push the chain off center, you're grinding more over here. The other thing that happens that I'm not real thrilled about when you do the 10-degree down is you don't get a real good C shape in here. One final thing that I'm going to mention is when you are doing the left-hand teeth, because the wheel is rotating counterclockwise, and it's rotating counterclockwise because a long time ago, somebody decided, hey, it's a bad idea to have the sparks fly towards the operator. So they made the grinders from then on to only turn counterclockwise. Well, what that does is, when you look at these teeth, this edge out here gets a burr. There's not a whole lot you can do about it except spin the grinder in the opposite direction. Is it worth it? I don't know. There's people that swear that the only way to really do it is to have, spin the grinder the opposite way. They used to make the grinders with forward and reverse switches. They don't do that anymore. I was going to put a forward and reverse switch on this grinder, and I may yet. I don't know. I'm still kind of thinking about that. It's a lot of work. You got to take all the wiring out of the housing and install switches, and it's kind of a pain. I don't know if I want to do it or not. I'm not quite sure that having a little burr on the side is any big deal. It may be a big deal. When you make a few cuts, that burr kind of goes away. Does it leave a dull edge when it goes away? I don't know. Maybe it does. So I'm going to do a couple of teeth here, and then I'm going to zip through this. So let's get to the next one. The next left-hand tooth is right there. And I'm just skimming the cutting edges. So that's all I want to do. I don't want to take off a lot of material. You can very easily, with one of these grinders, remove way too much material. I don't know if I mentioned this, the CBN wheel, because I'm guessing because it cuts so quickly and easily that the tooth doesn't have a chance to heat up. Your teeth are much cooler. You're not burning them. All right, zipping on through. I finished all the left-hand teeth. Now I need to do the right-hand teeth. So what I do now is I turn the vise, and we're back to 35 degrees for the right-hand teeth. And then we need to set our 10-degree down for the right-hand side. So we're going to take our vise and we're going to slide it to the 10-degree mark. Okay, tighten that down. Well, make sure it's still on 35. Get right on 35. Okay, now we have to do the same settings, except we're going to do it from the other side. So we find these are my two left-hand teeth. We're going to go to the first right-hand tooth. Now we're going to adjust our stop, and this time I'm going to show you an annoyance with the stop. Okay. This knob moves the stop back and forth, okay? Back and forth this way. The reason for that is you want to get directly behind the tooth. However, when you come all the way out so that you're behind the tooth, this is really, really loose. Not a huge deal, again, but it would be nice if this had a little bit of pressure behind it. So this is very floppy, and it moves around a lot, and I'm just not real happy with that. What I may do is I might pull this out and make a different one on the lathe so that you can put a heavier spring in here and have this thing actually, if you pull it up, it'll stay up. I can do that, but it'll very easily flop down. And then this is not tight anymore. This should have, I don't know, maybe a nylon insert or something in here. I don't know. It needs something. So that's going to be a little bit of a project, but nothing I'm too worried about. It functions. So when you pull the grinding wheel down, one of the things that happens is as the teeth get shorter, you get closer and closer to the stop, to the point where you'll start grinding the stop because the tooth is real short and there's not enough room. And then the stop is just sticking out, so it gets hit with the grinding wheel. All right, so I'm pulling the head down and I'm looking at the tooth, and because I've already adjusted the stop, I don't need to do anything else. So I've turned my vise the opposite direction. I've slid the vise to the 10-degree angle or down angle for the right hand teeth, and that just moves the chain off center in the opposite direction. So now instead of the wheel coming down straight centered on the tooth, it's coming down, the center is over here someplace, and that gives you your down angle. And then the depth stop we've already set, so that should be the same. Now on this side, when you're grinding, you don't get the burr because you're grinding into the tooth. So you're grinding into the cutting edge. So the burr, if there is one, would be on a spot where there is no cutting edge. Let's do one. See how it looks. Make sure my stop is set. Okay. as I pull the head down, everything gets in the way. So we'll do some from this side, from that angle. Now what I'm doing here, I come down, I take the initial grind, pull it all the way down into the bottom, make sure I'm getting all the way down into the gullet. And then what happens is it does actually raise a little bit of a burr, especially when you're just skimming the tooth. So I'm going to come back down and just let it gently knock that little burr off of there. It's doing that. Normally, if I was taking more off of this tooth, it wouldn't do that, but I'm just barely touching it. So it's raising a little tiny burr on the cutting edge. Somebody made the comment, I've never seen anyone do a 10-degree down angle on a full chisel chain. You can say whatever you want, but this is not a full chisel chain. This is called a micro chisel chain. If I can find, I will try to find a graphic and put the graphic up so you can see what the difference is. This chain, I'll show you right here. This is my chart, and this is taken right from Oregon. It's an 18HX chain, and it gets a 10-degree down angle. These specs are from Oregon. I didn't just make those up. Now I'm going to check the depth gauges on each tooth. I'm going to start at where the two teeth are, the two left-hand teeth. West Coast Saws 404 pitch gauge. And we're going to lay that on each tooth. And all I'm going to do is run my finger over that. And if I can feel anything, then it needs to be taken down a little bit. Before I get too carried away here, I want to show you this. This is the little card that comes with the depth gauge, and you'll see that there's a whole bunch of different slots in this, and these different slots correspond to different depth gauges. For this chain, the 18HX chain, it calls for a depth gauge of 50 thousandths. So if we look at the card, 50 thousandths, the bottom left set of slots. So what I'm going to do here, just so I don't get confused, I'm going to put a mark right there and right there. All right, so now I can see, it's hard to tell, hard to see that in the camera. I just put a Sharpie marker. So now I know these two right here are 50 thousandths. There's 18 or 38 to 40. There's 25 and 35. So 40, 25, 35, and then 50. This is a very nice gauge. The only thing I wish is that they would have maybe laser etched the marks for the different depths. That would have been nice. Depending on whether you have a left hand or right hand tooth, depends on which of these two slots you put the gauge in. Lay this down, and you really can't mess it up because it won't work the other way. If I tried to use the other slot, you can't because this part of it won't fit over the rivets. It lays on top of the rivets, and then we go like this. And if I can feel that, then we need to take a little off the depth gauge. So I'm going to get my smooth mill file. You can use the grinder to do these, but if your teeth are not all exactly the same length this way, then you're going to get a different a different depth for each tooth. I think they call it a progressive depth gauge. That will let me set the exact depth that particular tooth wants. And that makes the saw cut a lot better. This here is the old style. All right, so this one lays across multiple teeth. It's kind of okay, but you're not getting the accuracy. Now I can still feel a little bit right there. Even this gauge is telling me that I need to take a little bit off. Okay, but this is the old style, and that depth gauge needs to be filed down. And I'm doing four strokes with the file, and that's good. I can just barely feel the top of the depth gauge, and that's perfect. Okay, so I'll do the next one. That's also a left-hand tooth. That needs a little bit. So we're going to do the same thing, except I'm only going to do 3 strokes because it's not quite sticking up quite as much. And that's perfect. Okay, so you get the idea. This is tedious and time-consuming. However, it's a necessary part of sharpening your saw chain properly. I'm going to zip through the rest of this and stop talking since you kind of get the idea. I'm going to do all of the left-hand teeth, and then I'm going to do all the right-hand teeth. When I get to the end of the left-hand teeth, I'm going to flip it around and I'll explain to you why. Okay, zip through this real fast. Okay, I'm flipping the chain over to do the right-hand teeth. And the reason I'm doing that is because when you look at the teeth, you want to be filing this direction. So if the depth gauge is on the right side, obviously it's a right-hand tooth, it's going to be on the right side, you want to file from left to right. You always want to file from left to right. If you try filing the other way, this way, the tooth does this, and it snags. It'll snag the file, and it's just kind of a pain to do it. So we flip it around, so we're always filing in the same direction. I've reinstalled the chain and the bar. I brushed everything off, all the greasy smuck that was on there from the bar oil. And now what I want to do is I want to make sure that the oil pump is pumping oil and that it's getting to the bar. So because the bar is already down, if I turn the ignition switch on, the pump will come on. And we want to make sure we're getting the proper flow of oil. Not too much and not too little. So yeah, it's I can already see it coming out. It's spewing all over the place. There is a specification that states how much oil you need to put on the bar and chain for proper operation. I'm not sure where I found that. If I can come up with it, I will post it, but it's a heck of a lot less than you would think. So now when I start this, the blade's going to start and it's going to start flinging oil off the chain. So let's just get it started real quick, and then we'll let it fling some oil, and then we'll put the bar up and we'll be done with that part of the maintenance. Let's see if we can get it started. A little choke, a little throttle. All right, so that's one piece of maintenance that's done. Now I have to do some other non-firewood related chores. Okay, so that's it for sharpening the chainsaw chain. If you have any comments or questions, please leave that down below. If you found this useful, don't forget to subscribe. Everyone have a great day, and we will see you later.